The dust has settled, and we finally have the first round of polls since Joe Biden's disastrous debate against Donald Trump. In this video, I'm going to use those polls to fill in the Electoral College map. To be clear, I'm only using high-grade polls that are publicly available, as well as a few internal DNC polls that have been leaked. Now, I don't want to overhype how terrible these polls are for Democrats, so I'll let CNN do all the talking.
As a guide,
Correct.
As we all say, have an incumbent in the past face something like what is happening with Joe Biden now. What has that meant for them?
Nothing good. Nothing good, Sarah Seidner. Nothing good for them. All right, incumbents who trailed prior to and then lost the first debate: Jimmy Carter, George H.W. Bush, Donald Trump, Joe Biden. Well, we don't know what's going to happen this year, but we know what happened with the three other guys. And you know what happened with them? They were one and done. They all lost re-election. And at this particular case, Joe Biden, you're looking at those polls right now, looking at those post-debate polls, looking at that Democratic panic. There's really no good news except for the fact that, fortunately for Joe Biden, the election isn't today or tomorrow, it's in November, because he's going to need that time to make up for what was a historically bad performance for the current president of the United States.
So this is a base map. I went ahead and called both Florida and Ohio for Donald Trump. Yes, those are theoretically swing states, but I think we all know that thanks to Trump, those are solidly red states for now. That brings our base level to 235 electoral votes for Republicans and 226 electoral votes for Democrats, with 77 up in the air. Or does it? You see, there's internal polling from the DNC itself that suggests that several historically blue states are now leaning red. Here's what Fox News had to report.
In their own hide when it comes to re-election. And what has changed in the past 24 hours is we are starting to get more and more internal polls and more external polls, public polls about the ramifications of Thursday's debate. And there are internal polls, we are told, by Democratic lawmakers that show Joe Biden now losing Virginia, New Hampshire, and New Mexico to Donald Trump. That is a massive shift, and that would be a game changer in the Electoral College that was already close.
And by the way, both Newsweek and the New York Post published articles confirming the polls featured in the Fox News segment. Even MSNBC was forced to admit that Joe Biden is losing historically blue New Hampshire.
There is also a state poll we've got from New Hampshire, again, all conducted after the debate. And take a look at this. This is from St. Anselm College. They've got Trump ahead 44 to 42% in New Hampshire. Now, a couple things to say about this one. First of all, remember, in 2020, in the election, Joe Biden won New Hampshire by 7.5 points. Wasn't really close. So you can compare this finding to that. There's also not been a ton of polling of the Trump-Biden race in New Hampshire this year, but since December, there have been 4 other polls in New Hampshire. Biden has led all 4 of those polls by a margin ranging from 3 points on the low end to 10 points on the high end. All of those before the debate. This, the 2020 election result, and now post-debate, this is the one that stands out. Trump is ahead by 2.
So, assuming that all of that is true, switching those states from blue to red puts Trump at 257 electors, just 13 away from that magic number of 270 needed to win. And yes, the original 77 electors are still up in the air. Of the remaining states, I would argue that Georgia is the next lowest hanging fruit for President Trump. Now, here's the thing. Even before the debate, Trump was comfortably ahead, like outside the margin of error ahead, of Biden in Georgia.
This is fascinating. New polling conducted mostly after Trump's conviction shows former President Trump up by 5 points there.
Now, keep in mind that that was a month ago, well before the debate. And since the debate, things have gotten worse. This chart is from internal polling from the Democrat Party. It's from the viewpoint of candidate Joe Biden, so those negative numbers in red are actually a good thing for Donald Trump. According to the Democrat Party's own numbers, Trump was only ahead by 7.9 points before the debate, and after the debate, he's now ahead 10.1 points in Georgia. That's a 2.2 point drop for Joe Biden. So if we update the Electoral College, that puts Trump at 273, which is enough to give him the presidency. But wait, we still have 61 electoral votes up in the air. The New York Times, which despite its undeniable liberal news coverage actually has one of the most accurate polls out there, has Trump 2 percentage points ahead of Biden in Michigan. And again, if we look at the leaked polling from the Democrat Party itself, Biden has likely lost 1.8 points in Michigan since the debate. That puts Trump at 288 288 electoral votes, while Biden is still stuck at 204. Of course, in 2016, the other huge shock that went hand in hand with Michigan was Pennsylvania. Well, according to The Economist, which again is another left-leaning outlet, Trump wins Pennsylvania 73 out of every 100 simulations that they run. But that's not all. The Economist also found that if Biden loses Pennsylvania, then he only wins 6 out of 100 simulations. And even if Joe did win Pennsylvania, his odds would be capped at 25 out of 100. And if you take a closer look, you'll notice that if Biden loses Michigan, which I already predicted he will, he only has a 4% chance of winning the election. So that brings us to 307 electoral votes for Trump, while Biden is still stuck at 204. Now, on the map, it may look like there are only 3 states left to go through, but there's actually a new poll out there suggesting that 3 historically blue states are now battlegrounds for President Trump. I'll reveal those 3 states at the very end. According to 538, the polling average shows Trump ahead by 1.7 points in Wisconsin. But again, if we take a look at that internal data from the Democrat Party, Biden has dropped 1.9% since the debate and is now behind 4.2%. That brings Trump to 317 electoral votes. So we have 2 states left. To address these, I would like to remind you about that CNN segment from way back in early May.
Look, these Sunbelt battleground states, frankly, for the Joe Biden campaign, these numbers are an absolute disaster. The smallest lead is in Arizona for Donald Trump. He's up 6. Look at this, 9 in Georgia, 13 in Nevada. My goodness gracious, my God. That is a huge lead. No Democrat has lost that state since John Kerry lost it back in 2004.
So if Trump was winning Nevada and Arizona as far back as May, how bad are things now? Well, the Democrats' internal polling shows a 1.9% drop in Nevada and a 2.1% drop in Arizona post-debate. That puts Trump at 334 electoral votes. If this holds, this would be stronger than Barack Obama's showing in 2012. But don't forget, there are 3 Democratic strongholds that are now in play. Before I reveal what those are, I want to ask all of you a question. Have you had any family members or friends decide to change who they're voting for since the debate? Or even if they haven't changed who they support, do you think they're perhaps less likely to vote now? If so, please let me know in the comments. I might not respond to all the comments, but I do read all of them. And I want to respond to 3 comments from my last upload right now. Kevin writes, "Good one, Daniel." Well, thanks, Kevin, and thank you to you and to all my longtime viewers like Big Gator 5, I'm the Dave Man, Unknown to You, Aaron, and many more. You guys take the time out of your day just to tune in, and I wanted to acknowledge that and say that I don't take it for granted and that I'm genuinely grateful for all of you. Patrick writes, "They also said Hunter's laptop was Russian disinformation, even got 51 FBI operatives to sign on to it, so forgive me for saying liar, liar, pants on fire." I don't know how commonly known this is, but apparently the FBI had the laptop authenticated in 2019. Basically, they knew the laptop was real, they knew it belonged to Hunter Biden over a year before the New York Post story broke, and yet 51 intelligence officers still said it was Russian propaganda. I get that there are people out there who hate Donald Trump, but if you're looking for corruption, if you actually care about dishonest politicians, there it is. It's one thing to speak in hyperbole like President Trump does, but it's another thing to knowingly mislead the American people. And finally, Angela writes, "I think that it shows normies on the left that there's something very wrong with the Democrats. There is no hope for people who have Trump derangement syndrome. These people would vote for Fidel Castro if he ran as a Democrat against Trump." Unfortunately, Angela, I think you're right, and that's exactly why I make these videos. I don't think I can change the minds of people who are so partisan and stuck in their ways, but for people who are open-minded and don't pay attention to politics closely, which I think is the majority of Americans, I hope that even a small fraction of them come across my videos and get a side of the story that they won't hear from the mainstream media. Okay, so back to the Electoral College. I teased that there were 3 Democratic strongholds now on the line. If you haven't already, feel free to pause this video and guess in the comments section what those states are. The first Democrat stronghold that could fall is New Jersey. A Newsweek article published yesterday shows Trump beating Biden 41-40 in New Jersey. But that's not all. On your screen, you'll see the entire chart of the Democrats' internal polling. You'll notice that both Colorado and Minnesota have swung towards Trump by 1.8 and 2 points. This puts both Colorado and Minnesota within the polling margin of error, essentially designating them as swing states. If all 3 of those fell, that would bring Trump to 368 electoral votes to Joe Biden's 170, a true landslide. But wait, it gets even worse. The New York Times predicts that Trump would beat Biden in a popular vote by 3 percentage points. And with RFK Jr. in the mix, that lead would increase to 5. But as always, that is just my analysis, and I would love to hear yours in the comments below. If you haven't already, please be sure to give me a thumbs up. I know it's a simple thing to ask, but it really does help me in the algorithm to reach more viewers like you. Be sure to smash that subscribe button and to check out one of these videos.